Welcome to Fake Presidents, a real podcast about, well, you know.
Each episode will take a deep dive into a fictional American president from pop culture to see just how much fiction there really is.
I am Eric Buckman, a former political consultant turned TV writer who's currently not writing.
You keep saying that as if you're worried that when you say you're a writer that the guild will be like, scab. What you doing, scab? You scab and scab?
No, I just like to date the podcast almost immediately to anyone listening to it.
And I'm Ben Oren, a former journalist, sometimes speechwriter, and all-the-time TV producer. And today, we choose to accept a mission most impossible. Taking a look at the most recent Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, Part 1, to figure out who the fake president will be in next summer's Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, Part 2. I like that. That's a good follow-up title.
Yeah, Part 2. But before that, why don't we quickly wrap up the presidential politics of Marvel's Secret Invasion episodes 5 and 6. You know, we did the first 4. The president's still around in the last 2 episodes. Did not go out as I think either of us were expecting him to. So I guess we should,
Let's finish off.
My name is Andrew Shepard, and I am the president.
For Ritson and for Mulroney, pretty good gig. He was just in a bed for 2 episodes.
In a bed for 2 episodes, we got one exciting episode of action, although for most of that episode, he was hanging upside down unconscious.
Dermot Mulroney, yes, President Ritson was hanging upside down, yes.
Yeah. I guess the big news is he doesn't die. I think either of us was expecting the series to end with it opening the door for a President Harrison Ford in whatever movie he gets introduced in.
I thought you were going to say an opening of the casket to reveal President death.
A state funeral. We haven't had really one of those in a Marvel movie. Yeah. Okay, so the first 4 episodes, I would say it got progressively, if not more interesting, at least more entertaining. I think both of us thought episode 4 was a high point, and we're excited to see what would happen.
It was an exciting end to an episode. A firefight, guns blazing, helicopters getting shot down. You get Skrulls. You get a half Skrull. You get a Skrull death. You get special effects. You get a Skrull Groot, a Skroot. There's a lot going on.
Yeah. And then episode 5, though, unfortunately, it just takes President Ritson and sticks him in a hospital bed for the whole thing.
Yeah, we don't even know what really happened to him. He just got a couple of boo-boos.
And then episode 6, he's still in that hospital bed. So.
Still has boo-boos. Well,
still
it's the
has
same
boo-boos.
day.
Yeah, I think the most, although I would have loved to have seen him be a little more active, especially with Ben Mendelsohn's character taken out in episode 4. I was hoping he might jump in and be Nick Fury's partner for the rest of the series.
You get a little White House
down.
Olympus Has Fallen kind of thing.
Yeah, he could be the Aaron Eckhart to Sam Jackson's Channing Tatum.
Channing Tatum.
But I think the most disappointing to me is they took the thing that made him most interesting, the little bit of attitude that he had in episode 4, the swagger, the call-in, roadie on his drinking habits as they're getting into the motorcade.
Yeah.
The fact that for the first 4 episodes, Rhodey can't stop talking about how important he is, how, the President of the United States hangs on his every word. And then we see the two of them together, and it's not that way at all.
Well, what does Rhodey want? What does he want the president to do?
Well, from episodes 4 on, he's basically whispering into the president's ear, attack Russia, attack Russia. First he's saying, be aggressive in your talks. And then once the actual attack happens on the motorcade for episodes 5 and 6, he's telling the president that he needs to launch a strike. I think even a nuclear strike.
Yeah, Skrulls and Russians working together.
Yeah. Which addressed at least one of the thoughts I had about 4 is there are a lot of dead Skrulls. I don't know how they're going to hide all those Skrull bodies. And apparently the Skrull leader calls an audible and decides, let's just run with it. Let's let them know we were involved. And then even leaks to, I guess not really a leak, he tells Rhodey, fake Rhodey, to then inform the U.S. intelligence agencies that there is a Skrull compound within Russian borders. The Skrulls and the Russians are working together. The attack was a joint effort on the United States of America, and therefore the only proper response is to wipe that whole compound off the map, even though it's within Russian borders.
And it's Chernobyl.
For the last 2 episodes, he really is listening to Rhodey. He's not being the independent thinker that we thought he was, which first had me thinking maybe he's been scrollized. Scroll formed?
Scrolled apostrophe D?
Yeah.
Hosted by Ashton Kutcher?
I'm pretty sure BJ Novak.
Justin Bieber? Chance the Rapper?
Remember the one with Malcolm in the Middle's car?
He was very angry.
Yeah.
Frankie Muniz, you do not mess with Malcolm in the Middle's
Cars.
ride.
That's basically his life now. I think he's just like a amateur race car driver. Professional race car driver?
Professional? I don't know how much money he makes.
Professional car collector?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, he's got all the Malcolm Middle. He was on a show that's getting a lot of residuals. He's why we strike.
He's what?
We should all be Malcolm in the Middle. Although, but speaking of things in the middle, we have the president having to decide how to respond to this attack on his motorcade. And it looks like he's leaning towards attack until what happens in episode 6.
Well, the hospital is kind of under attack in a weird way.
Yeah. We won't get into a full recap. There's 1,000 secret invasion recaps. But yeah, basically they do a thing that it worked for the most part for me because I wasn't guessing that was a fake Nick Fury, at least not until pretty late in the sequence.
Yeah.
But,
I don't even want to overthink it too much because was that fake Nick Fury in the end of episode 5 going to the cemetery to get his jacket and his patch? I don't know. Maybe. Yes. It was weird, but I don't think it was built for us to think about it too much.
Yeah. But half the episode has what we think is Nick Fury infiltrating the Skrull compound to take on Gravik Mono e Skrullo while the hospital where the president is in is under siege, which was very reminiscent of Angel Has Fallen, which climaxes with a presidential hospital under fire, which I'm just going to say, I'm not going to say as a ripoff, because having worked in 1-hour television and action FBI show, half your episodes end in firefights in hospital corridors.
Yeah, they have to happen somewhere. If you don't kill the person, the person's in a place that everybody knows where the person is, and so you get a second chance.
And hospital sets are really easy to build, which
you get a mulligan. You got to get a mulligan.
Yeah. You just need some white walls. It's a cheap, efficient set. There's a reason why you'll see a lot of hospitals on television being attacked for your climax of your action TV series. It turns out the attack on the hospital is being done by the real Nick Fury, working with Olivia Colman, the British intelligence official. Was she head of MI5, MI6?
She was like second in command. Then she found out that the person in charge of everything was a Skrull.
Yeah.
Took him out.
Together, they're able to expose Rhodey.
The only way you could really expose Rhodey as a Skrull is to shoot him in the head. Which I was surprised. Let's go back. Rhodey is a Skrull. This version of Rhodey's a Skrull.
Yes.
A female Skrull. I'm assuming that Skrulls have males and females. I don't know whether gender is a construct in their home planet initially, but the Skrull that we saw that turned into Rhodey had boobies. And I thought that when Rhodey got shot in the head and turned back into a Skrull, I thought she was going to fill out a bit more.
Oh.
I remembered her being a bit more curvy in the shower scene.
Yeah, she might be.
The special effects did not give the curviness of that other Skrull.
My headcanon is she was putting on a performance, and as we know, whenever a female performer is playing a male role on stage, they always tape themselves down.
Okay.
It's very Peter Pan-esque.
Yes. Very Shakespeare in Love.
Yeah. They wind up... And I guess the disappointing thing here, and I've used the word disappointing a few times now, because if you can't tell...
I think a lot of... If you have a Google alert for Secret Invasion, most likely the word disappointing will also come up a lot in the emails you get every day.
Yeah, and this is not a comment on the overall quality of the series. I'll leave that to other podcasts. Mine is just on how the fake president, how President Ritson was treated, how for 4 episodes, he was being built up to be the man. And then by episode 5 and 6, he is just not just have no agency on his own, but he winds up kind of cowardly, grabbing a gun in a way that felt more desperate than action hero-y, demanding to hold a gun. And even though he has all the power to make a decision of who to trust, Nick Fury or Rhodey, ultimately the decision is made for him when Rhodey slips up and makes an aggressive move on Olivia Colman, who's got the gun to him, which opens up Nick Fury an opportunity to shoot him in the head. So the president winds up having to make no real decision at all. Even then, Nick Fury doesn't even have to convince the president of anything. Because if Nick Fury has to convince the president to trust him, and the president then makes an active decision, I mean, I'm not saying he hasn't even used that gun, but just, the I trust you, Nick Fury decision, then both of them are given substantially more to do.
I think it'd be pretty easy to expose a fake Rhodey. I mean, I don't know. Doesn't Rhodey have like special, Iron Man style legs helping him get around? Like he's a paraplegic.
Yeah, I've heard the director of the series, who's pretty much the only person allowed to promote it at this point, because by the time the series ended, both the writers and actors were unable to talk about the show. And he was talking about how, if you look at the fact that they say that, when real Rhodey is recovered, and the first thing that is said to him is, "Oh, you've been here for a while," and he's wearing a hospital gown and he can barely walk, he says that's because the switch happened during the events of Captain America: Civil War. Going back that far.
Really?
Because one of the last times you see him in Captain America: Civil War, he's wearing an identical hospital gown when he's in an MRI machine, after he's left unable to walk through the events of that movie.
So
that's what the director said.
So Rhodey, for the past essentially like 7 years, has been in stasis at Chernobyl?
Yes, which raises the question of, wait a second, if radiation's that bad that Nick Fury has to take pills to visit there,
but Nick Fury does not have to take pills. He's playing a role because it's not Nick Fury.
But if it had been real Nick Fury, he would have had to take the pills, which is why the ruse worked and fooled Gravik. So then why aren't all the humans being stored there not dead?
Why are they dead? Yeah, they should be dead.
Yeah, which of course goes to my question: why are they kept alive at any point? Since Gravik did not care about human life at all.
But this isn't a podcast where we're reviewing the episode.
No, we're not reviewing the episode. We're not going to be talking about.
We're not going to tell you what we think about.
I'm not going to say something about the fact that it's a series that opened with the Skrulls declaring war on the humans and ends with the humans declaring war on the Skrulls, which, when you really think about it, is not that different. And so it's almost as if over the course of these 6 episodes, nothing really changed. I'm not going to say that. I'll leave that for other podcasts to talk about. What I will talk about is the fact that the arc of this president, however you say he began, because, he's a bit of a cipher in the beginning, but he's definitely diplomatic-minded when he goes into the summit that they're rushing to be there.
Yeah.
He's definitely trying to figure out, how do I get out of this situation without starting World War III.
World War III. It's the biggest meeting since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
And then not only does he become convinced to start World War III, but even when that's exposed as a fraudulent act, that the Russians aren't responsible, but the Skrulls still are, but just some Skrulls, he decides...
Not all Skrulls.
Yeah, except to this president, it is all Skrulls. Because his arc ends.
You can't trust a Skrull.
With him giving a speech where he's basically declaring all extraterrestrials on the planet to be an enemy combatant by default.
That is why tonight I'm presenting to Congress for immediate emergency authorization a bill that designates all off-world born species enemy combatants. We know who you are. We know how to find you. And we will kill every last one of you.
He basically says, "Get off my planet."
Yeah. He says that, and then he gets a phone call from Nick Fury. He's like, "Why'd you say that?"
Why'd you say that?
And then Nick Fury, he kind of did our job for us, actually. Very helpfully points out that this is a one-term president.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, his exact words were, "You took a bad situation and made it worse. That's real one-term president stuff. Shit."
That's real one-term president stuff.
I mean, Sam Jackson, whenever he sees the word stuff, he turns it to shit no matter what. That's just like an impulse that he has. The truth is he definitely said shit like in the scene, and then they used AI to turn it to stuff. And that's why Samuel Jackson's on strike right now.
Yeah, the line gets delivered totally off camera. We're actually, for some reason, following Emilia Clarke's character and Olivia Colman's character when that line is being said. So for all I know, it could have been ADR, because when they first shot this, they didn't realize Harrison Ford was coming in to be president.
Yeah.
And then they realized, oh, wait a second, we need to explain why there's a new president in a future movie. So it's throwing a line calling him a one-term president. So there's a highly probable circumstance that this is the last we've seen of this president.
Yeah, but by the way, it's pretty ballsy to say all extraterrestrials get off my planet when they all battled Thanos on the planet.
Yeah.
And it was very helpful to have the outside people come in to help out the Earthbound Avengers. It was nice to have a little Thor and the various Guardians of the Galaxy, and of course Captain Marvel. I would say that was a good call to have them part of the squad.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, Thor.
You're saying Thor. You're looking at New Asgard. You're like, get off my planet. By the way, what authority does President Ritson even have? He could say, get off my country. But he can't say, get off my. It's not your planet, dude. New Asgard is a great tourist attraction. We saw that in Love and Thunder.
Yeah, so it ends with him declaring all these aliens to, I mean, especially the Skrulls, the ones who can look like anyone, enemy combatants who must be treated as a hostile invading force, which then eggs on a bunch of vigilantes, a bunch of mobs of humans who then go around attacking people who they think are Skrulls. And so we see a pretty disturbing ending montage.
Yeah, sometimes they get it right.
They kill Christopher McDonald on live TV.
Nailed it. They got that one correct.
But then they take out some people who aren't Skrulls.
Like the Prime Minister of England. Whoopsie. Oopsie. It was a goof. They made a goof.
Yeah. I hate to even say the phrase, but I don't know how we can avoid it. I mean, he's basically a Make Earth Great Again president.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a mega president.
Make.
Yeah. And so I guess if there's any allusions to current events, I mean, you have a president rallying up the masses to take on vigilante acts to, circumvent justice.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, the Skrulls made him look weak and stupid. I mean, when it comes down to it, like if there's going to be congressional hearings about this, you would have to call the president. You say, you had a Skrull as your right-hand man since Winter Soldier? Wait, Civil War?
Even though the director says that's when it happened, and the hospital gown does match the one that was seen by Rhodey in Civil War, I have a funny feeling if you were to ask Kevin Feige when it happened, he'd just play coy and say, when do you think it happened? Because I don't think they want to undo all the emotion from Endgame when Rhodey is basically the audience surrogate for the sadness of Iron Man's death.
Oh, yeah.
But
still, he could be a Skrull and still he could have had some good times.
with Tony Stark.
With Tony Stark.
Maybe Tony knew. Maybe Tony liked this Rhodey better.
Look, Tony was already cool with when he looked completely different in the first Iron Man.
Yeah.
He just rolls with it. He's like, you know what? Well, I don't know, man. He's a good hang. He's a good hang.
Get off my plane.
It's a disappointing end because I was looking forward to this president going out in a much more, what was the word? I'm not going to say glory, but at least not taking such a heel turn towards the end.
He certainly did not have a hero moment.
And I think the reason why it's disappointing is just because the fact that he ends on the note that he does he's basically just become a human Gravik. I'm just not sure how the relationship between humans and Skrulls is any different at the end of the series than at the beginning. The only difference is now more humans know they exist to hate them. It's still beyond tense. There's still outright violence going on. You're still going to have Skrulls impersonating humans out of survival and espionage.
I mean, Fury said there's an election coming up. Do you think if he doesn't win, do you think he's saying that there's some Skrull silliness, some Skrull underhandedness, some Skrulls perhaps voting as American citizens? What are they going to say? Prove to me you're not a Skrull. How am I going to prove to you I'm not a Skrull? Let me stab you. Let me see your blood. Like, there's only one way. There's only one way to settle this. Poke, poke.
Yeah. So it was a disappointing end for that president to me.
And I think it settles in that President Ritson is a Republican, right? President Ritson's a Republican.
How dare you come into this office and bark at me like some little junkyard dog? I am the President of the United States.
Is this the last we see of Dermot Mulroney?
I mean, based on the trailers for the Marvels, it just doesn't feel like that movie has even though this is a follow-up to Captain Marvel as much as anything else, and the Marvels is also a follow-up to Captain Marvel.
It certainly is.
The tones are so different. I can't see them opening that series up with Ritson in any way doing anything, because for him to be doing his Make Earth Great Again thing in that movie, it just feels so out of place. You know, it feels like the kind of thing you save for the next Captain America.
There's still a shit ton of Skrulls down there. And we know that the Skrulls and the Kree are going to be hashing things out. That's told to us at the end of this episode, at the end of episode 6.
Which is why Nick Fury is going back up to the space station, Saber, which is where he'll begin in the next movie. So for all we know, the first lines that Nick Fury utters next movie is, "Congratulations on your peace deal, and thanks for taking all these Skrulls off of Earth." You know, problem solved. Or I really think if we're going to see Ritson again, I do think it'd be a great way to begin a Captain America movie, which is at one point it was called, New World Order. They've since shied away from that. I think because they realized that they were playing a little too much in the conspiracy theorist.
A little too close
tropes.
to Q. Yeah.
But that said, if the movie is all about, a destabilized world politically, a great way to start that would be assassinating President Ritson, a guy who's basically put a target on his head from every Skrull who just wants to live in peace, and then anyone who considers them an ally. If this series ended with his assassination, I'd be like, okay, you went somewhere. That's interesting.
That would be that's like what 24 would do.
Yeah. And if they're saving that for later, that's a good way to say goodbye to him and also introduce why his VP or someone even further down the line of succession, General Thunderbolt Ross is now the president, played by Harrison Ford. That said, I suspect by the time we see any Oval Office scenes again in any MCU series, it'll already be with a new president.
Yeah.
But we shall see.
We shall see.
This is a presidential favor.
Which takes us to... There was something you really wanted to talk about.
There is something I really want to talk about, Eric. I've seen a lot of movies this summer.
Wow.
Yeah, not to brag. I got to the movies a whole bunch. I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Oh. I saw Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. I saw...
No Part 1. They did the smart thing.
Chapter 1? Volume 1?
They didn't. At one point, it was going to be Across the Spider-Verse Part 1, and then they realized very quickly that people don't like the words Part 1 in their titles of their summer blockbusters because it just encourages them to wait to watch the movie on video closer when Part 2 comes out, which we might cover in a few minutes. The effects of the words Part 1. And so the people, these shrewd producers of the shrewd, well-educated producers of that movie realized that no, they should treat it as its own thing and not bill it merely as setup to something else to come a year later. Yeah. Well, but back, you were saying.
In Across the Spider-Verse Part 1, I saw that. I saw a lovely movie called Past Lives. I saw... What else did I see?
Oppenheimer?
No, I haven't seen Oppenheimer. I haven't seen Barbie yet. But I did see a little movie called Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I didn't only see it once, Eric. I actually saw it twice.
Wow.
Within a week.
Did you see it either time in IMAX?
No.
Yeah, I missed it in IMAX, and then because of freaking Oppenheimer, all the IMAX theaters were only Oppenheimer, within 10 days of it opening up. And so I'm hoping at some point they do a Top Gun Maverick thing.
You're Oppenheiming?
I'm hoping that they will release it in IMAX format at some point, before like the holiday season, just to give people a chance to see it in IMAX.
Because it would be pretty dope to see it in IMAX. I saw it the first time with my dad, and then I saw it a week later after we picked up my son from sleepaway camp.
You saw it with
That's the
your real
movie
dad?
he wanted to see, so I saw it twice in a week, and it's a lot of fun.
It is. It's a good movie.
I enjoy the Mission Impossible movies. The previous one, Fallout, is dope, but I'm talking about this movie in this podcast because I think there's going to be a fake president in Part 2 next year.
Oh, yes. Well, we know there's going to be.
We know this. This has been confirmed. We're not breaking news here.
We've talked about this, Ben.
We talked about it on our podcast?
Nick Offerman, on a podcast where he was being interviewed while they were shooting his role in Part 2.
Wait, Nick Offerman's in Part 2?
Yes, he's in Part 2.
I don't listen to our podcast. I just record it.
Well, here's what we've previously talked about, or at least I've talked about it. And that is that Nick Offerman on the Light Diffuse podcast, the official podcast of the Mission Impossible franchise, or they've since become official. Back when I listened to it, they were not the official podcast, but Paramount has since acquired that podcast to make them the official podcast.
Damn.
Yeah. Hey, Paramount.
Living the dream.
Just saying, Paramount, you have a lot of movies with fake presidents. You have all the Jack Ryan stuff, Clear and Present Danger, Some of All Fears.
The official fake president podcast of Paramount rolls off the tongue.
I'm just saying, we're very available. But no, Nick Offerman, he let it slip. Not slip. He was okayed. Christopher McQuarrie was also being interviewed and okayed Nick Offerman to say that he was currently filming scenes that it felt like they were scenes of a war room type nature. And so he's in scenes with the President of the United States, and he did use the pronoun she to refer to her.
Oh,
so,
yes.
Ben, take it away.
Well, there's a scene in Dead Reckoning Part 1 at the Director of National Intelligence, Carrie Ellis. And there are lots of various government people there. You have the head of the CIA, who is Eugene Kittredge, who we haven't seen for about 30 years since Mission Impossible Part 1. He got a huge promotion. Congratulations to you, Eugene.
Only took 25 years.
Only took 25 years. That's why you're a lifer. He did the work.
Yeah.
In the room there's generals. There's a general played by Rob Delaney, which I guess it's not is it a cameo when it's a role? It's not a cameo. For some people, you might consider it, right?
I think he had like one line. I mean, you saw it twice.
Yes.
Yeah.
He had more lines than other important people in that room.
Yeah.
But still, it's like, Rob Delaney, good for you, dude. Yeah. You're in like action movies. This is your second action movie. He was in Deadpool's.
Deadpool 2, yeah, where he both dies and is brought back.
Yeah. He's killing it. And, but behind Carrie Elwes, you know what? He's been famous for so long, and I've never pronounced his name correctly, I believe.
Yeah.
Elwes?
Elves?
Elves, like elves, but elves?
What do you see behind Carrie?
He plays Denninger.
Yes.
He plays Director of National Intelligence.
Denlinger, yes, because you had
Denlinger.
Henry Zerning was playing Kittredge. Rob Delaney was the JSOC.
Yes.
You had an actress, Indira Varma, playing the DIA. That's the Defense Intelligence Agency, not to be confused with DIA from DuckTales, which is the Duckburg Intelligence Agency, which is a real thing. Not a real thing, but it's a real thing.
It was a real. DuckTales was based on a true story. Everybody knows this.
Don't forget Mark Gatiss is playing the NSA, National Security Advisor.
Yeah.
So you have every head of every U.S. intelligence agency, mostly played by Brits.
Yep.
Except for Rob Delaney, who
Rob Delaney lives there now. He lives there now, so he's like basically a Brit.
And they're all talking to Carrie Elves, and who is standing in front of a portrait of. I guess we should finally say who the portrait of is.
It's of Erica Sloan, who was the head of the CIA in Fallout, and she was played by Angela Bassett. So I think everybody now knows that was a little Easter egg to let us know that in part 2, we're going to get a fake president. It's going to be Angela Bassett, and Erica Sloan has gone from the head of the CIA to the presidency of the United States of America.
You think she's going to pull an H.W. Bush?
The good old HW. But I mean, HW, that took some time. He just didn't dance his, as we all know, he loved to dance. He just didn't dance his way from the CIA to the presidency. He put his time in as VP for 8 years. But this is a pretty quick turnover for Erica Sloan.
So you're saying, based on that photo, even though one could argue that because of her role in intelligence as previously established, that a photo of her in an intelligence setting could be explained through other ways.
It wasn't like it was autographed, as if Carrie's character is a huge fan of heads of the CIA, and he loves to, he writes some letters, and it's like, could you please autograph this colored glossy? I want to put it in my office. I'm just a huge fan. No, it's his fucking boss.
Was it weird that Carrie Elwes was he joking when he confused the IMF with the International Monetary Fund? And he acted like he didn't know what the IMF was?
No, he didn't know, because everybody else in the room knew, because they were like, Kittredge, why are you telling him this secret thing? Only we're supposed to know the secret thing.
That was one of the things that was kind of confusing to me, just in terms of the cabinet level politics of it all. Is in previous movies there was a secretary of the IMF, which was played off as being like a cabinet level position to the president.
Yeah, but after Alec Baldwin bit it in Fallout, I guess they're like, let's close a chapter on this job.
Yeah, that was rough. I felt bad, but he got a raw deal making that movie. I can't imagine a worse experience for him making a movie.
It's probably his worst. It's probably his worst movie experience ever. Yeah, I'd probably say that day probably is like when he thinks about the worst day I've ever had on set. It was probably that.
How? Because I'm the goddamn president of the United States of America.
I hate to pour cold water on your enthusiasm, but I would be remiss if I didn't share something else I've since picked up.
Oh no, what?
Now, this isn't totally going to kill your theory. It still is alive, but hearing Henry Czerny Kittredge talk in interviews about his role in this movie, he has stated that his role was originally much more like a cameo. It was more Rob Delaney than what he wound up being. And in fact, Angela Bassett was supposed to be in that scene in this movie, and she was supposed to be the one giving Tom Cruise his marching orders on the recording at the beginning of the movie, and also bookending it with an appearance at the end of the train. So she was basically supposed to have a much larger role, and only got replaced by an increased Henry Czerny when COVID protocols kept her from being on set when she was needed.
I'm not going to blame everything COVID. I think we're going to get a presidency. We're going to get an Erica Sloan presidency.
Because originally,
there's no other reason. Eric, you are the portrait king. You are the portrait detective. You're the person who notices things on walls, pictures in picture frames. Nobody in this game, this podcast game, nobody in this country pays attention as much as you do to what's on walls, what's on desks. You're telling me there's only one photo in this government office of one person. Who would that be? be the president. Of course.
I clocked that photo too. I also know that when I first heard Nick Offerman talk about being in a scene with a lady president, I did go on to the IMDb page for what was publicly available.
Which I call a lady president just president.
Yes, but I had an additional clue to gender, or at least gender expression of the president. And so that allowed me to at least look at the cast as already been announced. Yeah. And I did notice on that page for part 2, you have a lot of characters, a lot of actors, including Nick Offerman, he's on there, and they all have names, except there's 2 actresses who don't have names, character names released. So we know they're in the movie, but we don't know who they're playing yet.
Who are these actresses?
My first thought was,
who are these actresses?
They're both British, but of course that does not stop Ralph, not Ralph McQuarrie. Christopher McQuarrie. I was confusing him with the person who did all the concept art for the Star Wars movies back in the 70s. No, Christopher McQuarrie. He does not mind casting British people to play American roles, as we just talked about.
To be fair, most of Hollywood has no problem casting British people to play American roles.
Home base for these movies, because they shoot internationally, is frequently London. And so the 2 actresses who stood out, because A, they don't have a character name yet, and B, they are the right age and type to play a personal character. One is her name is Janet McTeer.
Oh yes, famous. Well, she a Tony Award-winning actress.
And then the other name that popped out was Hannah Waddingham from Ted Lasso.
Okay, she's a little too sexy.
So my original thoughts went to, I think Janet McTeer she is the president.
We'll see. We'll see in a year.
I don't know. Look, this is a chance for you all to write in. We have 1 year to figure this out. What do you think? Who do you think? We know there's going to be a fake president, probably a woman if that narrows down the actor pool. So who do you think the fake president, the fake American president will be?
Wait. Tom Cruise has also, he does his own stunts.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful actor, both dramatic and comedic. And he's not afraid of putting on a lot of latex.
That's true.
To hide it, to do something else entirely. So maybe Nick Offerman is throwing everybody off. And Tom Cruise went back to the latex that was given to him in Tropic Thunder. And he's going full lady. He's doing a little Doubtfire, playing 2 roles.
Well, that's what they did in the first Mission Impossible movie. They introduced a Senate character who you saw on a McLaughlin Group TV show, file footage of, played already by Tom Cruise, so that when Tom Cruise had to impersonate him with a mask on, it was a easy because there was never a real actor to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, we know who it's not going to be. Leia Remini. Okay, this has been Fake Presidents. Thank you all for tuning in.
If you like what you've heard today, give us an old rating. That would be wonderful if you came on to Apple Podcasts, or are there other ways to give us ratings and reviews?
Yeah, I mean, almost every service that you use to listen to a podcast offers some way to either review it, star it, favorite it, share it. Do one of those things. We'd really appreciate it. Artwork was by Ann Hecker.
Music was by Johnny Sadoff.
You can find us on Instagram and Threads at fake_president.
We could get emailed. We like emails.
Oh, yeah. You can email us, fakepresidents@gmail.com. That's actually, if you have any theories on who's going to be the fake president in part 2 of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, send it our way. That's the way to do it. Heck, if you have any theories on how they're going to say goodbye to Ritson on Secret Invasion, in the Marvel Universe, we're all ears for that too. And then we're always looking for movie or TV show suggestions, although we might be TV'd out for a bit between Jack Ryan and Secret Invasion.
Bye.
Bye. At Fox, where I usually pick it, one of the days where I didn't go, who should show up together to pick it together? Dermot, Mulroney, and Dylan McDermott.
Damn. That's a president. Somebody who played a president. Somebody who played a traitor.
And a dedicated Secret Service agent who dies in the line of duty. Or,
Okay,
shall I
that's
say,
that's how you want to remember him.
in the line of fire.
Yes, I'm thinking of the guy who's talking about globalists.
And Olympus has fallen.
And Olympus has fallen.